Good morning, governors, guests, and I would say most importantly, friends, in this beautiful family where we all belong. My name is Miguel Pincas. I'm a long-standing member of the Board of Governors, and today I have the distinct honor of introducing our two speakers at this year's annual John Gandel Symposium on the Middle East. Every year, this is one of the most important meetings, and I enjoy it tremendously, as all of you do. First, a word about the symposium. John Gandel is an Australian businessman, property developer, and philanthropist who inaugurated the first John Gandel Symposium in 2003. Its mission is to brief you on the ever-dynamic political and security landscape of the Middle East by bringing you the country's leading decision and policymakers and scholars. Today we have the honor to hear from two outstanding leaders. And I have to say, when I read their biographies, I was really impressed. I even had some tears in my eyes. Dr. Eyal Hulata is the National Security Advisor and head of the National Security Council. It's not an important position at all. Dr. Hulata has served in his current position since last August. Before assuming this role, he held a number of senior positions in the Israeli Mossad. Among others, he led the Operational Technology Department and served as head of the Policy Division. Our second speaker is Yehezkeli, an Israeli journalist in the field for 25 years. He served in the IDF Special Forces and is a veteran of the Shin Bet, Israeli Security Services. He is currently the head of the Arab Affairs Desk of Israel's Channel News 13. Zvi not only covers the Israel-Palestine dispute. In 2016 and 17, for several months, he disguised himself as a Muslim wandering around European countries and covered the phenomenon of the Islamization of Europe through interviews of Muslim residents. He also made a documentary series and movies about ISIS and Iran. It is now my great honor to invite Dr. Eyal Hulata to the podium. Dr. Hulata.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here and to share a stage with Yehezkeli. Is a wonderful experience, I'm sure. I want to first thank my dear friend, Professor Eyal, the president of the university. We've known each other for several years, and thank you for inviting me to speak at this Board of Governors event. I myself am a graduate of the university. My master's and PhD are from the School of Physics, and the former president, Professor Klafter here, was a teacher of mine, so it's an honor. In 23 years of service in Mossad, I've had the privilege to be part of some of the more important issues of national security and to lead innovative efforts to harness advanced technology to fulfill the organization's mission and country's national goals. Moving from these positions to the current role as National Security Advisor and head of National Security Council, for me, was a fulfillment of a call of duty. We need to make no mistake, there is a lot of toll on many aspects of life in such duty, and I had a share of duty before that. But I try to follow a wonderful quote from our late President Shimon Peres, to always make sure that your dreams are more exciting than your memories. And with that in mind, when I got the call from the Prime Minister to meet me and to see if I was a proper fit for what he felt, I was very happy to have the opportunity to do so. The Israeli National Security Council was created to improve policymaking, strategic thinking, and planning, and cross-organization coordination. This wasn't an easy transformation. The security establishment did not voluntarily give room for another organization to enter this realm and be so close to the Prime Minister. And as other structural changes, ultimately it was possible because of a devastating military conflict. It was Prime Minister Olmert, one of the outcomes of the Second Lebanese War, to understand that he needs to create this, and this was built at the beginning of Netanyahu's term in 2009. And the council was built on a structure that existed before that. It was very, I would say, weak and distant from center of decision-making processes, and here we are. A key issue for any national security advisor is to define the scope of matters that we deal with, national security matters. And this, of course, can divert from time to time, and among leaders. When I got into position, the Prime Minister gave me clear directives of his priorities, and we transformed that into a set of issues for what we work on. Clearly, global affairs, at any point in time, and specifically now, have an impact on what we do. You know, as Israelis, we truly sometimes believe that we are the center of the world, as you know. And from time to time it might be true, but there are so many currents and trends outside that have a direct and indirect impact on us that we need to make sure that we don't miss that. Of course, great power competition, Indo-Pacific issues, and this is all before this awful war in Europe started. We put a lot of emphasis in the relationship between our government and the American administration, put a lot of emphasis on restoring the bipartisan nature of the relationship between us and the United States. And I view this as a key pillar in our national security. And then, of course, come Iran, the single most destabilizing power in our region and a root cause of most of our security challenges and threats. Their nuclear ambition and their regional hostile aspiration have been on top of our agenda for many, many years. I've worked on those issues in Mossad, and I don't envision this, unfortunately, will change anytime soon. But we also try to focus on opportunities and not only on challenges and threats. And harnessing the immense opportunities coming out of the Abraham Accords is very high on our list. Not only to expand the number of countries that will participate in that, but indeed to put content, economic, people-to-people content and progress into this amazing set of new relationships that we have with the moderate Sunni Arab world. Next comes stabilizing the Palestinian conflict and promoting measures to decrease hostility and to increase prosperity of the population. Doing so in itself is not easy, given the diversity of the coalition politically in Israel. I'm not a political figure, but it is my role to make sure that we can work and promote what we need within the constraints of our system, and we put a lot of effort into that. We need also to reverse the trends of mixture of nationalistic and criminal motives in Israel itself, in our own society, in mixed cities, in Arab towns, and we put a lot of emphasis on that. We also decided that we need to make a dramatic improve in the civil preparedness in Israel, not only in cases of war, but also for natural events, be it earthquakes, wildfires, pandemics, and climate change. make a sound decision to include mitigation and adaptation of climate change into a national security issue in our country, and we'll work on that. Now, I want to share with you just a few pressing issues that we're dealing with shortly, and we can talk about them later in our conversation naturally. The first in the realm of global affairs is our involvement in facilitation between Russia and Ukraine. The Prime Minister made a decision understanding that if we have the ability to have a concrete and trustworthy conversation with the President of Russia, and also with Zelensky, which, as you all know, except from Israel, that's the only state leader who is Jewish around the world. And if we're in that position, we cannot look away from the conflict and not try to facilitate a negotiation between them. I won't go into the details. Unfortunately, we've not made the progress that we wanted on this, but we're fully committed to continue to do so, given our situation. On Iran, and again, we might talk about that later, naturally. Israel's position on the JCPOA is well known to the American administration. We're very transparent and clear, both in what we feel and want, and also in our commitment to engage constructively and work on the mutual goals, despite of disagreements that we may have. This is a very sensitive point in time. We've seen Iran use its ability to create havoc all across the region, and in those places the outcome is failed states with proxies attacking us or other moderate actors in the region, in the Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, and what have you. When the RGC supply cruise missiles and ballistic missiles to the Houthis in Yemen, which fire on Abu Dhabi and Dubai on January 17th, 24th, 31st, and then on February 1st. Yes, I remember those dates because they matter. It means a lot. That was unprecedented at the time. And we cannot overlook those issues. Iran is not just a problem of Israel. It's a huge problem for Israel. But Iran is a problem for the stability of the region, and we all need to work together to amend that. And this may also give a hint on the nature of the way that we conduct our relationship with our new friends in the region. Just in about half a decade, Israel turned from a situation where we were in bloody conflicts with our Sunni Arab neighbors, and our strategic ally was Persia. And half a century later, it's totally in reverse. And our ability to build from this and create a regional structure that can enhance the security and the economic prosperity in the region is something that we're working very close with. Our trade with the UAE jumped tenfold since Abraham Accords. We just signed a free trade agreement with them, our first with an Arab country. And there is so much more that we can and should do. We need to ask ourselves if the Negev Summit, which put together the foreign ministers of UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, Morocco, with Secretary of State Blinken, and in one place, could you imagine that 10 years ago, or 5, or even 2? This is the prospect of what we can do if we continue on this course, and we're committed to do so. And I will finish by addressing the most pressing issue that we deal with in recent weeks. Israel is in the midst of a terror wave, which started before the Ramadan. We suffered almost 20 casualties in Beersheba, Bnei Brak, Tel Aviv, Eyal, and the recent brutal attack in Elad. Last month, during the time of Ramadan, all the three major monotheistic religions celebrated their holidays together. The Jewish Passover, the Christian Easter, and also the Greek Orthodox Holy Fire ceremony together during Ramadan. We need to hope this sometime in the future will be a pure festival where all the monotheistic religions can celebrate together. Instead of that, extremists hijacked Jerusalem and sucked us all into conflict that we didn't want and look for. We are committed to allow free worship for all religions, and we're committed to the safety of all people. But we have to defend ourselves when we're attacked by terror. We're committed to promoting economic progress for the Palestinians, both in Gaza and the West Bank. We approved 20,000 workers from Gaza to enter Israel to work. This didn't happen for so many years. And we're going to reach 200,000 workers from West Bank coming into Israel to work. And there is much more that we can implement. But we have to defend ourselves when we are attacked by terror. Fighting terror is harder when social media is available so easily, where any visual becomes evidence even when it's fake, when incitement is so easy and propaganda spreads so fast. But we are committed to continue, and we're not willing to give up. We're not going anywhere. This is our neighborhood we live in. And as the Prime Minister says, our strategy is to do good and be strong, and the rest will follow. Thank you so much. And now it is my privilege to invite Yehezkeli. Please.
Thank you very much. He's not talking a lot, Take a picture. He's gonna disappear because he's still in the secret world. I think it's your second or third. Yeah, for me too. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me today, and President, thank you very much, Eyal. I thought what I can say after you will hear Eyal lecture or speech, and I will tell you about my job. My job is to come every day to the Israeli TV and to tell in 40 seconds what the Arab world and in Iran wants to do in 40 seconds. And what I found, that's why we are flat, the journalists, and we're not giving solutions. We're giving the analyzation. We're like a doctor. They're telling you what's the disease, but we're not doing nothing with the medicine. You're responsible for the medicine, and we will talk about later. So, after 25 years of covering the Middle East, and I covered the Middle East as a journalist and sometimes undercover. I lived in Jenin, in Hebron, for more than half a year as an Arab. And afterwards, in my documentaries in Europe, I penetrated Europe with the refugees. And I think that my job today is to tell about the Middle East, not from my Western point of view of telling what about them. It's a big argument in the academic world. By the way, I teach in this building media. I studied in the Hebrew University, but when I entered this building, I suddenly realized that a great school that was here in this building, Koteret, that's the place that I was educated. When I'm watching the Middle East, I find that I have a problem as a Western to tell about the Middle East. Now, in the last years, I'm telling the Middle East at the way that the Middle East in itself telling the story for itself. That's why when I'm penetrating to ISIS or to the Muslim Brotherhood, I don't want to tell them, look, I did a fawda and entered inside of you, and let's do a selfie. I did selfie with ISIS at the last time. He told it was in Ramadan, by the way. And it was so friendly that I forgot, and I said to him, why we don't have a coffee? And they were so polite, they brought the coffee. So when I'm entering or working undercover inside, it's not just to tell to my audience that I'm a hero. No, you see, I'm an old, and what happened here in my face, you see, it's a procedure that I became a, how you say it in English? A DOS? Chazek. Get stronger. I don't need any dangerous things in my life these days. I'm going inside to hear how's the Middle East telling the story for itself in their saloons, in their mosques, in their societies, and then I find out that we not understand the Middle East. We are the Western sometimes thinking that, oh, let's do this and they will act like this. And it doesn't work. Sometimes it's in the beginning it's work, but afterwards you see that something wrong happened. Look what happened with the Arab Spring. Look what happened in Afghanistan. Look what happened even in Iran. We're going to talk about Iran, but 2015, the negotiation between the United States and all the Europeans with the Iranian, it was like in the Iranian telling about like what's like a joke. The bizarre culture, 4,000 years of cultures against 300 years culture of the Western American or the European. Who's gonna win? The Iranian, sometimes I feel that the Iranian are joking. They do like a joke inside the negotiation because they know we want more than them to settle down. Before 20 years, I was jailed in the Muqata'a in Ramallah with Arafat. I was the first journalist to enter inside. Not a big, not a nice spirit, and not a good food, by the way. But he told me, I asked him, look, why you refuse to Prime Minister Barak that offered you 93% from the West Bank? If somebody will give me 93% from my wishes, I will say, okay, let's take it. And then we will do jihad on the 7%. Like Ben Gurion did. Give me what you give me. And we'll continue from that point. And he said to me, maybe you're a journalist, but you don't know nothing about mathematics. I said, why? He said, 93%, it's close to 100 or to 0? I said to him, of course, to 100. He said, no, 93% it's a 0. So I said to him, okay, it's a zero-sum game, you know. It's simple. He said, no, it's not a zero-sum game because when I will have the 100%, I won't admit or recognize your right and your justice. The struggle is on justice, not on numbers. And I was a young journalist and I said, what do you want from me? He refused, but after 10 years, after the Intifada, the second Intifada, the deadly second Intifada broke out, I realized that it's about justice. And we're so far, unfortunately, because I had a feeling that it's going to be so close. You know, settle down. He said to me, we do agreement. I told him, I do agreement to settle down. He said, I'm do agreement to be more power to kick you off. So, oh, this is the distance between West and the East. And it's in all the aspects, in all the issues. When I studied in the university, there was 2 theories. It was in the end of the 90s. 2 main theories, where's the world is going? Where are we heading? One theory says, end of history. Falling of the communism, globalization, united, the European going to unite together. That's it. That's it. I'm going to buy in AliExpress and everything will be okay. And it's going to be free world and end of history by the mean of end of wars. The other theory, book, whatever, those 2 books, said, no, it's going to do the opposite. There's going to be a clash of civilizations. And we said, no, we want peace. I don't want to clash again. But look at the news. we're in a world of end of history or clash of civilizations. As more as we know each other, we're close to each other by WhatsApp or by sharing things on the net, sometimes we are more struggling. That's what happened in the last 2 months. When you see all the emotions going out and you are saying, hey, what's happened? What's going on? Yehezkeli from Gaza can address people here in Israel. Why? Because always there's some powers that will push to a clash. And this is the first station when the Western point of view want to go towards the East. We're in a clash. Okay, if you're telling yourself that, like Arafat told me, I'm not going to be blonde, take it into consider. He's not going to be Western. Okay, so I can begin to play. But if you say no, I'm going to do end of the conflict. It's going to be end in 8 months, in 9 months. No, it won't work. This is the main problem of the West. He wants solutions, and sometimes solutions. It's not the terms of the Middle East. The Middle East is in the structures of tribe, of clans, not a states like we want to believe. When they ask me why the Abraham Accords happened so quickly, I said, it's not because they began to love the Jews. They won't hate. They didn't hate. Because they want the protection of our tribe. They're small tribes. They're looking through the bay and they see Iran. They're going to swallow them, the Iranian. Why? Because before 1,350 years, when Prophet Muhammad died, they were arguing who is going to lead the Islam. Ali, his nephew, and he married his daughter of the Prophet, said, we are patriarchal tribe. I'm close to the Prophet. If Muhammad had a son, it was okay, but there is no. So it's my wasaya. It's my job to continue the Prophet. So the other said, the Prophet's friend said, no, it's our job. And they clashed in the first clash in Islam that divided the Shia, like we say in Hebrew, and Sunnah, the mainstream, the main road of the Prophet. Since then, they're fighting. So the identity in the Middle East, it's a tribe, it's a clan. And sometimes we want that the clan will be loyal to democracy. Sometimes it goes great, sometimes it's not. I do believe that the Abraham Accord is going to succeed and going to be something really that we didn't see here in Israel, just because the tribal structure of the Emirates, and even in Saudi Arabia as well, and even in Bahrain, even in Qatar, but Qatar, they're still playing. What I wanted to say, that's it? That's what I left, 3 minutes? That's it? It's like on TV. Okay, so West and East, and I think that the structure, the tribal structures, it's the main structure in the Middle East because it was before the Islam. In the Arab Peninsula, the tribes ruled the territory before the Islam came. Now, inside the Islam, there is as well clashes between not the radical and the moderate. No, I'm not using those terms. Clashes on a tribal basis and on ideology basis, like what happened in Egypt. In Egypt, Al Jazeera are not transmitting, by the way, of the unfortunate case that happened yesterday, and even not in Jordan, only when they control it, because there is a lot of tension between the players, and they don't want other tribes to interfere and they don't want democracy now. That's what's happened in Egypt. Egypt collapsed because of the Arab Spring. So 2 minutes, two issues, Iran and Palestinian. Again, 40 seconds for each issue. I will tell, like a doctor, the problems, not the history. We have a big challenge with the Palestinians in these days. Abu Mazen is 86, 87. There's no election. The economic in the West Bank, great, doing great. But there is Gaza Strip. And Gaza Strip are still holding the jihad ideology more than everything that we offer them. We offer them a bay and a port and industries and high tech. And Yehezkeli said, no, first is jihad, jihad awalan. And this is the main problem from my point of view, because Hamas is not, he don't have any settlement in his charter, nothing. It's very, I'm very concerned by all those powers that played in the last Ramadan, from Gaza to Arab of 48 or the Israeli Arab, and the terror attack that we saw. Terror has a roots, and the roots, it's in the education. I'm reading books. I'm reading what they telling in the mosque. They didn't accept Israel as a country that sometimes, someday, will do a peace with them. We are not there. And unfortunately, this is the situation today. About Iran, I just will say what I'm going to ask you, that what you're going to do when the Americans gonna sign on this contract. It's very bad contract for Israel. Not in the sense of the bomb, because if the Iranian will have one bomb, I can put my money that they will launch it to Saudi Arabia, not to Israel. But there is a phrase in Persian said, if you want to gain, fight with the Jews. If you want to gain and to have a lot of dividends, fight with the Jews. Time's up? Okay. So I'm very worried from maybe the American mistake that's going to be in this session. And I'm very worried from what Iran doing in our region. I'm talking about the 4 countries. The 4 countries that Iran conquered already. Yemen, Iraq, thanks to the war in 2003, Lebanon, Nasrallah, they are the majority, and Syria. Assad is an Alawi. When he was challenged in his civil war, he called to the Iranian. Now the Iranians are around us. There's missiles in Yemen, there's missiles in the Golan Heights, in the Syrian part of the border, and a lot of missiles to Nasrallah. This is the main, I think, the main threat of Iran on us, around us. And after an agreement, it's going to be more. So take into consider. So I have to be optimistic, you know. That's it, the time zone. So, like I said, I'm not a politician. That's why I'm not giving any solutions. But I can tell you that that's how Eyal is going to the picture, because thanks to Eyal and people like him that thinking what to do, I think we will find not a solution, a way. Not a binary solution 0 or 1, a way to see the real challenges, and like we did before 74 years, it's a miracle. Our country is a miracle. If that's what happened to me, it's a miracle. That I married and I have kids. I didn't marry until 40. I have here friends that remember me on the motorcycle. 40. And now I have 7 kids, and I'm a believer. Believe me, everything can happen. Thank you very much. I want to say sorry for my English, because in my mind I'm translating from Hebrew to Arabic to English, and then it's English and Arabic, it's Arabizi. It's English and Arabic, it's Arabizi. So I thank you very much, and I hope I was understandable. Thank you. So,
So what should we start with? The journey.
the agreement.
The agreement.
I will say, in Arabic, we have a phrase, بدك الحاكة وأخوه. You want the truth or his brother? Choose. So, it's amazing language, by the way. I'm always telling to the Westerns, speak Arabic, and that's it.
And that will be the solution.
That's it. So,
The path.
not his
Well,
brother.
first, I think they might go back to the agreement. They might not go back to the agreement.
And if they
do, then that is truly not a good outcome from Israel. The problem with the agreement is that eventually, in not a very long period of time, it provides legitimacy to the Iranian nuclear program. That's the single most problematic issue with the JCPOA. And I think from board to board in Israel, there is a consensus about this, even when the agreement was signed. There were people who said back then in 2015 that at least we will have several years of Iran not enriching, and then we'll see.
not anymore.
But now we're in the last part of the agreement. There is nothing to gain. And the flow of money that Iran will get from it will fuel a lot of the activities that I spoke about before. This is truly a problem. Now, when the Americans and Western community say that they understand that this is an agreement for several years and they need to negotiate a new agreement, that sounds good.
Really?
But it doesn't mean that they will be able to do so.
Is it?
Our belief is that there is better chances to get a good deal without going back to this one rather than the other way around. But in any case, we need to prepare to all of the other contingencies. And I'm not going to get into what that means, but we're preparing. The Prime Minister spoke about this. If we're committed not to allow Iran to be able to build a nuclear bomb, we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to prepare, and we are.
Alone.
But in parallel to that,
Alone.
if so needed. But in parallel to that, there are other issues, pressing issues, that Iran is doing in the region that have nothing to do with the nuclear program.
The terror.
The terror, the regional aggression, the proxy activities, the failing of the states around it. And addressing that is also important. Iran, and I've been learning them and monitoring them for a long period of time. Iran, they're in the region, but the population of Iran, the average Iranian, is more Western than Mediterranean. There is extremism, and when you're extremist, regardless of where you come from and where you studied. The number of kids in an Iranian family has dropped over the last several decades. We know what that means. It also means that they want, how did you call it before? To settle down. When this is the issue, it means that there is different kinds of trends within the country. And this is important because it means to have something to work with. I very much agree with what you said about complex issues not having a solution. Eureka moment where things just happen to be. Sometimes it's the case in science, but even in science, not everything can get fixed in a matter of an experiment. But clearly, when it comes to people and peoples, that is the case. So I'm not trying to say that we have a solution of what we're going to do now and then in a year from now, this will be resolved. But we do understand what are the components of the things that we need to do as Israel, what are the components that we need to do with our friends in the region, with the friends in the Western world. And I'm optimistic that over time, if we're continuous in what we do, we can prevail.
Great. You want to ask me something?
I want to ask you, because you spoke about the Sunni-Shia conflict and alluded to the Karbala war in Iraq. And I want to ask you, from your perspective and understanding of the people, how do you feel the change in sentiment that there is among those communities? Am I right when I say that there is a shift in culture in Iran?
There is a shift in culture in Iran. I think that I met Iranian refugees in the Turkish border, in Azerbaijan and in Greece. They're amazing people. They admire the West. And I think they suffered because they born after the revolution, the Islamic revolution. So you can't sell them Islam. They suffered from Islam. I did a whole series. It's called Salam Iran, with two meanings. Not the salam of peace, but hello Iran. I didn't know.
Let's get to know you.
Yeah, good to know them. And they have a lot of hopes that the West someday will help them, to do the revolution, to take over and to kick off, sorry for the phrase, to kick off the Ayatollahs. Because the Ayatollahs, even yesterday, I saw in Khuzestan, the Arab region in Iran, demonstrations that telling to Khamenei to go to hell. Why? Because they are starving. They paid more than their money and their life for this adventure of spreading the Shia all over the Middle East. But the problem is that we still have this regime. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about peoples, the Iranians are not the enemy. In the Middle East, you have another structure. There is leaders that sometimes don't reflect what exactly the people thinking because it's not democratic. But take, for example, what happened to the Egyptian people towards Israel in the last 40 years, from the beginning of the peace agreement. In the beginning of the agreement, they said no normalization, nothing. We don't want you. Cool. No visit, because we are the Israelis and the Jews. We're looking for love. We're looking for hummus. We're looking for to be tourists. To be tourists somewhere, and it doesn't work. I've been to once. I took the guys from the channel. When the time that Eyal worked, I saw her, and they asked me at the 2007, it was election, and we took a roof in Ramallah, and we have a broadcast and everything, and I said, democracy arrived to Ramallah, and when we finished the news edition, I heard gunshots between Hamas and Fatah, because Hamas won, and Fatah, they said, sorry, democracy, but we're not going to give you the key. So the Israelis said to me, leave the civil war. Let's go for hummus. I said, hummus now, it's so dangerous. They said, I'm not going to go out of Ramallah without hummus. So we went to a restaurant, and we saw in the restaurants gunmen from Hamas and Fatah together, sitting, not together in friendship, and here Fatah and here Hamas in the restaurant, and a free table in the middle. And I said to them, you still want your hummus? In English.
And they did, right?
Huh?
They did.
They said yes. I said, okay, nobody speak Arabic, nobody speak. I will speak with the waiters and everything.
Well, so the issue of democracy in the Middle East, of course, is an open issue. I don't think we need to educate a different culture of how to run their structure of decision making. It's an issue that I always talk to my counterparts and friends in the region, and they take pride in the way that they conduct their tribal systemics. Exactly. When the Prime Minister met President Sisi, and they had several of those, we were amazed. We don't know this because we don't check. He has more female members in his cabinet than most of the democracies in the world.
Country, yeah.
In Egypt.
Yeah.
In Egypt. Check it out. It's clear. And he's still attacked as being abusive to his people, and issues of civil rights.
Depressing
and other
the Muslim
things.
Brotherhood.
Yes, the Muslim Brotherhood, who tried to take over Egypt and put them even more in turmoil. It's very difficult to explain those concepts to the West. I think that one of the good things that are happening to us as a society, that we are more attentive to those things. How to mix West and East in Israel. How to mesh together high education, academic, top-notch, as this university educates the people, and the ability to feel the street, to feel the mood in a different mindset. I think this is one of our challenges, but if we're able to do so, that we can blend. What is happening with us in Egypt now, and I don't want to say things that will turn around in the end, but when a leader of an Arab country decides that it's good for his people, not for his politics, for his people, to have better food system, for his food security, and he needs our irrigation system because he needs better agriculture. He cannot rely on the rise of prices of wheat just because there is war between Russia and Ukraine, and Egypt is suffering from that.
Exactly.
The prices of pita,
the wheat crisis.
Right?
Yeah.
So calls for many things that are completely apart from the importance of security collaboration, of intelligence collaboration. Hopefully, this is the future.
The Egyptian people, I just want to complete, and I will tell you that there is an end for the hummus story.
Yeah. With falafel.
Yeah. The Israeli always saying, you signed an agreement with the Egyptians and you didn't tell us that they're not eating hummus, they eat in full. It's a secret, but because peace in our region, it's not about food and not about love. The Egyptians today, yesterday, in the last week, the ISIS killed more than 20 officers in Egypt, in Sinai. It's in addition to the 4,000 in all the last decade. Egyptian soldiers killed, and the Egyptians want help from us. So the Egyptian people, after 40 years, say, thank you for the Israeli neighbors. In the other hand, for example, the Palestinians. The Palestinians are a very complicated area and issue. So the Palestinian people now knowing us more, but when they see the weakness of democracy, which means I can let you do whatever you want, but I have borders, that we're not keeping our borders, they analyze it that as a weakness. And that's what we have here. When I studied I worked in the United States and studied, I was in New York in the 90s. It's not allowed to go to the Bronx and Harlem anymore because, if you will go there, they will rob you. Now, everything is flourish. Why? Because you're forcing your rule as a state, as a municipality or whatever. That's the job of Israel because this is the thing that the Arabs really admire and want to be part of us. And the end of the story of the hummus, we sat and the waiters came and said, hey guys, hey foreigners, what's for you? And the anchorman said, for me hummus. And he said, you're Jewish. Said, wow. And suddenly it was silent. Hamas stopped eating and Fatah said, Jewish in the restaurant? And we all were red and white. And I said to them, I said, why are you saying that he's Jew? He said, because only Jew eating hummus in 9 o'clock at the evening. It's the morning. It's like a cereal for us. And everybody was laughing. And they brought him hummus, open Israeli hummus, and they pictured, this is. When you want to really do peace, look at the interest of the tribe. That's what you did in Abraham Accords. Abraham Accords, it's to analyze what exactly those rich tribes want exactly. They want our protection. That's why in Israel we call it normalization agreement, Yehezkeli normalizacja. In the Gulf they call it protection agreement. You're protecting me, as well as Egypt, as well as Jordan.
Yes.
And I think this is the power of Israel, of this miracle that's called Israel in our region.
Yes.
Is this an answer or just a story?
No, I think first it's a wonderful story. Also in Jaffa you have to eat hummus in the morning.
Yeah.
Even as Jews. So I don't know what Jews he was, but he wasn't eating hummus in Jaffa.
Right.
I think that the issue of our own internal conflicts are also important, and I want to ask you about this as well. We understand, of course, that the level of crime in the Arab towns, in our mixed towns, we've seen this in just a year ago. When this erupts in an event of war with Gaza, this brings anxiety to ourselves. We need to act, and we are acting. And we're able to do it while we communicate constructively with the leadership of the Arab towns and cities. Not with all of them, it's difficult, but with some of them. And there are separate issues in the Negev with Bedouins, and in the north, it's a different tribal system, and we need to understand it and to engage in it. But I want to ask you, if I may, from your perspective, if we're successful in that, in lowering back levels of crime, less guns in the streets, more policing and structure, what is the prospect of coexistence?
I do believe in coexistence, by the way, because I do believe that we have a lot of things to share. I don't have any problem with Islam. When I did my series, they said, why you are, I don't have any problem with Islam. I have a problem. I'm like Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the president of Egypt. I don't have a problem with Islam, but what you're talking in your mosque, and it's a political Islam, that's my problem now. When Sisi asks the intelligence, the Egyptian intelligence, what they're talking in the mosque, in the 4,000 minarets of the mosque in Cairo, they said, we should write the report. He said, no, it's going to be the khutbah, the speech of Friday, going to be from my phone. I'm going to transmit it to all the 4,000 mosque, because if in the mosque somebody will confuse between religious and politics, and that's exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood calling themselves, Islam, political Islam. Mm-hmm. This is the problem. I don't have a problem. We know in Arabic we have a phrase, "Kul wahadu dinu wa Allah ya'inu." Each one with his religious, and God will help him. I don't mind. More than a million Muslims going to a mosque and fasting in Ramadan, and it's great. But if you take the Ramadan, like Yehezkeli did, and do from the Ramadan jihad, I say, stop it. Sure. Look what happened in the Arab countries. Look what happened in Egypt when they encourage violence or missiles from the tunnels to Gaza. Those missiles shot the Egyptians after half a decade. Mm-hmm. Look what happened in Jordan and in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was the house, the madrasas of all the radical Islam, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of them studied in Saudi Arabia. Until MBS said, oh, no, it's dangerous for me. That's why they wrote a fatwa that Al-Aqsa is not in Jerusalem. Amazing. Aqsa, where is Al-Aqsa? 30 kilometers from Mecca. Go to see it. Oh, guys, I love you. No, it's not about love. You have an interest that the Islam won't clash you inside your house. Great. But I have to, like you said, to see this procedure, to be more aware to what exactly going on there, and to dance with it, to flow with it. It's amazing what happened in the Arab countries, people and regimes. So this is optimistic point of view. And I'm returning back to your question inside Israel. When I taught here, I had a lot of Arab students, and I see now that they change. I asked them, why you change? Why you respected the country more when you were young, and now it's less? They said, it's your problem, because you didn't do your duty to keep on my society from gunmen, from not poverty, crime. So if you're a state, do it. Yes. If you're not, I'm going to do it. This is the tribe. Tribe, it's not like we're saying tribe or clan for the Americans like in Indians. No. Tribes and clans, it's a structural, social structure with a lot of justice, with a lot of, it's in economic systems that you have a protection for your house, nobody going to steal from you, you have to pay your taxes. Even now in Hebron, there is clash between two clans, Ja'bari and Awewi, those two. For in half year, they invited me to compromise.
Yes.
And then I said, okay, great. I said to them, okay, let's go to Quran. He said, it's before the Quran. It's before. Haq al-Ashair, the law of the tribe is before the Quran. So what you going to do? We're going to combine. But don't forget, we are tribe. So we have to understand that this is the structures and deal with them in the Negev and in the north, and to dance. When you're not when you don't study the language, so okay, let's talk Hebrew. No. When Israel wanted to arrest Muhammad Def, they came to Arafat. So one of the officers, I think it was Bogi Elan, came to Arafat and said to him, I want you to arrest Muhammad Def. So Arafat said, Muhammad Ish? Muhammad Def. Muhammad Ish? So what's the problem? You can't hear Muhammad Def. It's not a problem of hearing. I can't arrest him. But I have a picture for you two together. And they said, Muhammad Ish? So the officer said, Muhammad Def. So Arafat told him, please go out. I'm not deaf. Which means, please, don't come to me with your language, because my language is the first mahzom, first obstacle, first checkpoint, and then we can dance. That's what I found from my experience in the Middle East. And I think you can do a lot of great things here in our country.
And from the way we look at it, we understand that there is it's like a new social contract that we need to put there. For us to be able to get out, to remove the guns and the crime, we have to work with the locals.
Yeah.
And it is an issue of trust between
And law,
our,
and enforce law.
of course, and law enforcement. If it is meshed with trust, it will work. But we will need to do it regardless, because we do understand that providing the social benefits is just not enough. We have to lower it, and to do it within Israel will have to come first. If we cannot make it happen within our towns,
I think
Then it
our
won't
back, it's towards the wall each year that we are continuing, and I do agree. And I think that it's again a question of our region. When I asked the Saudi Arabian and the Bahrainian, what do you want for us? Why you want us to attack the nuclear program in Iran? They said, you're the big brother, you're the clever brother, you're the rich brother, you better do it for us. Yeah. So I'm telling you again, you are the big, you are the rich, you are the clever, do it. They're expecting us to do it.
Yes. Well, I remember I was speaking to a commander of CENTCOM a decade ago when I was in school, and I told him where I was from and what we were doing, and he told me, as a commander of CENTCOM, that when he travels around the region, he hears from the Arab leaders two things. They're afraid that Israel will attack Iran, and they're afraid that Israel will not attack Iran. Now, that was back then. When it's nowadays, I think that at the level of communication between us, we will definitely be there. But again, to come back to what we said before, we're not looking for that conflict. We're not looking for this as a solution. We're not looking for dragging ourselves, the region, or the Americans into military conflict with Iran. This can be resolved otherwise. We believe that. We are working on it. And we need to recognize that when we look at the pillars of our own strength as Israelis, it has to start with our economic prosperity that can provide for our security capabilities. It has to come on our global affairs, blending in the West,
In the East.
and in the East, and in the region in this regard, and of course the internal cohesion of our society. When Israel is able to maintain the growth of economy, and we had a wonderful year. You know, this is not my sphere of work. I work on national security, but
It's
when
still
the
a
economy is
powerful,
growing,
it's a strategic,
exactly, it's
strategically
a powerful tool to fulfill most of the other things. The economic growth in Israel in the previous year, during COVID, was more than 8%.
More than Germany.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
When you check where Israel is in GDP per capita, we rank 19. Nobody puts a G20 of GDP per capita, right? Only in absolute terms. But if we continue in a pace of growth, and Professor Frankel is here, if I'm wrong in what I'm saying, you can of course correct me. But if we're able to maintain growth in consecutive years for a decade or a decade and a half, Israel can be ambitious enough to believe that we can be a $1 trillion economy. Why won't we? And how different our lives will be and the region's lives will be if we're able to do that. For this, we need to maintain the ability to continue to grow. We need to maintain the ability to keep the conflicts down.
To recognize
we have
them.
to recognize the journey, and we need to be strong.
Yeah.
Just a simple fix. It's
Simple
like an
and long.
equation. We just
Simple
need to
like
put all
our
the
people.
parameters in it, and that's it.
Simple and long,
Yes.
but the right one.
Yes.
When I was born in 1970, my parents told to themselves, after 18 years, there won't be an army. He won't go to the army. There's going to be peace. And then when I was 18 and afterwards, I went to the army because this is when you dream Western dreams, you're in the Middle East. But if you will say to your son, and I'm telling to my son, in 18 years old from now, you're going to be in the army, but I hope you will use the real power, because like my other friend from Hamas told me, we are taking, sometimes we are sending you to the shelters because of small, simple missiles. Because in the Middle East, it's not so important what you have, it's how you operate it.
Yes.
So this is part of the journey.
I agree.
I want to thank you, Dr. Eyal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, President. I want to thank you all. By the way, you have a great questions, If you want, you can come to our studios,
Yes. We'll keep the conversation open.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. תודה אחי יקר.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה. כן, זהו, את זה צריך להוריד.